Hello, everyone. My name is Jesse Krimes. I am a visual artist, curator, and advocate, and my work primarily focuses on criminal and racial justice. Since the age of 13, I have transitioned through nearly every facet of our criminal justice system, from juvenile probation and jail to state and federal prison. During my last 6-year sentence, a year of which I spent in solitary confinement, I turned to individual and collaborative art making as an act of resistance against the dehumanization and institutionalized racial division within. While incarcerated, I also produced and smuggled out numerous bodies of artwork, including Purgatory and Apocalyptine, both of which showcased at MoMA PS1 this last year. I also established prison art programs and co-created multiracial art collectives. Since my release in 2014, my work to end mass incarceration has straddled both gallery and museum spaces and socially engaged art practices. I also co-founded a fellowship to support formerly incarcerated artists. And while doing all of this work to support people on the outside, I started to think about how I could use art to support people who are still inside. This led to the development of my creative capital project, the Mass Incarceration Quilt Series. This project is designed to create space for incarcerated people to be able to control their own representation and how they want to be portrayed in the outside world. The series includes self-directed portraits composed by incarcerated people in prison photo rooms, which I then render on individual quilt squares, as well as larger quilts depicting interior scenes of their homes or spaces that have felt like home. Both iterations incorporate old clothing collected from directly impacted people or their families, and this is meant to basically invoke the collective body of the millions of people who have been disappeared by mass incarceration. These quilts will ultimately serve as mobile monuments, engaging audiences across the country in partnership with organizers and advocates. Ultimately, my goal is to showcase approximately 2 million of these quilts on the National Mall as a way to reflect the overall scale of incarceration. As much as I believe in the power of this project, I also know that the Mass Incarceration Quilt Series will not be enough to end mass incarceration. So while there have been significant reductions in incarceration in a handful of places across the country, the overall number of approximately 2.2 million people in prison has largely remained unchanged over the last 2 decades. In order for that to change, we have to build an even more powerful movement that brings together artists and advocates to collectively reimagine and strategize together. Directly impacted artists deeply understand what is at stake and can creatively frame both problems and solutions for both audiences and policymakers. Working on my creative capital project during a national reckoning with white supremacy, state violence, and a worldwide pandemic has created even more urgency for this next project that I'm also about to outline. I am currently in the process of building and organizing the Art and Abolition Society, a 3-prong approach to building a national movement of formerly incarcerated artists and advocates working together to end mass incarceration. The society includes the Right of Return Fellowship that I founded after my release from prison, which supports formerly incarcerated artists across the country with grants to create projects in partnership with advocates working towards policy change. It also integrates an alternative school being piloted at MoMA PS1 to create pathways and access for new and emerging impacted leaders to join the movement. The alternative school will be scaled by partnering with major museums across the country who are willing to replicate the model being piloted at PS1. The final element is a national residency where leading artists and advocates can build a more deeply interconnected movement and strategize to end mass incarceration. This is where all of you come in. Like my Mass Incarceration Quilt Series, the success of the Art and Abolition Society will depend on partnerships, collaboration, and scale. In order to make this happen, we need to fund future cohorts of the Right of Return Fellows, develop a national network of institutions and museums that will replicate the alternative school, and secure a dedicated space to build out the residency. We also need to secure partnerships with architects, designers, and visionaries. So if you have 50 acres, $1 million, or a museum, this movement needs you to dismantle mass incarceration. Thank you.